Hi, welcome everyone. Delighted that you could join us this evening for the screening. My name is Amjad Hall. I'm director of SFU's Vancity Office of Community Engagement. I just wanted to begin by recognizing that we're on the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Really delighted that you could join us here in person. We're sort of just getting back into the swing of things here at SFU, and it's wonderful to see people in person here. And I did want to also thank Real Causes, the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival, which kicked off this week, who's a partner on the screening of Inside Out. And I also want to particularly thank Norman Ormur, who's sitting in the back there as well, who helped make the connection with us and Patrick and all of that to make this happen tonight. I'm going to invite Patrick up here shortly to set up the screening, and immediately following, there will be a panel discussion happening as well. Patrick's originally from Montreal. He's a graduate of SFU School for the Contemporary Arts. He's been working as an actor in Vancouver TV, film, and theater scene for the past 30 years, and some of the companies he's worked with include the Fire Hall, New World Theater, Rumble Theater, Mortal Coil, Pie Theater, Touchstone, Headlines, ITP, Urban Carl, and Main Street Theater. His work has been recognized with 2 Jesse Richardson Award nominations. Patrick served 3 sentences in federal penitentiaries in Quebec and BC. When he transferred to Matsqui in BC, Patrick took courses that were offered first through the University of Victoria and then through SFU. One of these was in the art and craft of theater. Please join me in welcoming Patrick Keating.
Hi, thanks for coming, everyone. Yeah, I won't be too long here. I just wanted to say a couple of thank yous to the funding bodies, Canada Council, the Arts, and Transformative Health and Justice Research Cluster. I also wanted to thank the Office of Community Engagement, Amjad and his team. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Mr. Norman Ormur, who without all of this, without him, this wouldn't be happening. The event itself and the digital adaptation. It started as a theater piece. And when I was traveling around, there was a couple of times that I went into carceral institutions and performed. And in one institution, a gentleman came up to me after and said, I always tried to find the words to tell my family what it was like in here, and I could never find them. And you found them. You have to keep doing this. And so it gave me a huge push into trying to get it into carceral institutions. And of course, COVID hit, and word came from the Canada Council that they wanted people to try and pivot to take their performances and digitize them. And so with the help of Norman, we put together an application which was successful, and we digitized the theater piece and started sending it into different institutions. And I would have a talk back after with the incarcerated. That's about really all I have to say. I hope you enjoy it, and please stick around after. We're going to have a panel discussion. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Great. Well, Patrick, it's just incredible. Like, unbelievable. I've seen it before, and I feel like I hear different things every time, and it's just so moving and incredible. So thank you for sharing that. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Amanda Butler. I'm a criminologist and health researcher, and I've had the pleasure of getting to work with Patrick as part of some grant work at UBC, and gotten to know him as a friend. And so I was really honored to be here today to help host this discussion. So Patrick has already been introduced, so I'm not going to go through his whole bio, but I will just add one thing that Patrick is in Virgin River. I don't know if there's any fans in the audience, the Netflix series. So this might be your opportunity to get an autograph. I'm a big fan of the show. So just add that tidbit for Patrick. And I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our other panel members today, and then just give you a bit of a sense of what we're going to do. I'm going to ask a couple of questions just to get the ball rolling and some conversation started, and then hopefully some of you will also have questions for our panel. So we'd really like to hear from you. So as we're talking, please remember questions or make notes in your phone, and we'll have lots of opportunity for that. So in addition to Patrick, we have Pam Young with us here today. Pam has worked with Unlocking the Gates Services Society since its inception in 2011. She is currently the program manager and previously worked as a peer mentor there. Pam attended Nicola Valley Institute of Technology and graduated from the CHAD program with a chemical addiction support worker certificate. She is also the peer coordinator with the UBC Transformative Health and Justice Cluster, where she provides leadership and guidance to support social justice-oriented research activities, policy action, and community-driven change for people in prison and post-release. And Pam is also a lived experience consultant across many committees and projects, and she's co-author of the book Releasing Hope, about women transitioning from prison, and regularly presents to students and organizations across BC. And we also have, welcome, Pam. And we also have Karen Davidson joining us today. Karen has worked for over 30 years in corrections, starting in federal corrections in 1982 to 1986, and then working at Vancouver Island Regional Correctional Center for a couple of years, and has since been with Nanaimo Correctional Center since 1994. Her focus in corrections has been in programs. 12 years ago, BC Corrections and the then John Howard Society partnered to create the first in-custody therapeutic community called Guthrie House, and Karen has been actively involved in that program since its inception. She is the Assistant Deputy Warden of Admissions and Discharge and Case Management. She also added that she has no children, a mean cat, enjoys gardening, and most recently, paddleboarding. That's Karen. Welcome. I'm impressed that you're paddleboarding. Karen and I recently bonded over the fact that neither of us know how to swim as adults, so that's on our to-do list.
I don't know either.
You don't know either? Okay, maybe we should all take lessons.
Okay.
Yeah, it might make paddleboarding a bit safer. Yeah. So one of the things I thought might be fun to start out for this discussion is to talk a little bit about how creativity is a form of healing and creativity as an act of resistance. So maybe I'll just start with you, Patrick, if you can talk a little bit about the role of art and creativity in your healing journey, healing being kind of the broad sense of the word.
Yeah, I guess it played a huge part. If I didn't find theater, I'd probably still either be back inside or dead. At that time, like I say, there was university courses given, and the theater course, when we were doing the production, a theater company from Vancouver, Tamanos Theater, came up and saw the show. And then they liked it, and they asked if they could reciprocate by bringing up a production that they were doing at the time. And the production was Happy Days. It was by Samuel Beckett. And it was basically a one-person show. And in the first act, the woman is up to her waist in sand, and her day begins and ends with the sound of a bell. In the second act, she's up to her neck in sand, and her day begins and ends with the sound of a bell. And this was the first play that I'd ever seen. And I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, that's my life. I'm stuck. And I thought, how can they tell my story without telling my story? So I was so taken with this craft that I wanted to learn as much as I could. And the two designers that were working on the production, we were helping them, unload and the set. And they said, look, if you want to push in the right direction when you get out, give us a call. And so I did. And I started just being a sponge, painting chairs, carrying the set around, reading as many plays as I could. And I eventually went back to Simon Fraser into the theater department and got a BA and just started working. But it was without them, a creative community that welcomed me in. That I owe this to, really.
Wow. That's an incredible story. And I want to pick up on what you're saying about the creative community and maybe use that as a bridge for my next question for Pam, and talking about just similarly creativity as a form of connection and community building through art. And if you have any experience through that in your recovery journey.
Well, I mean, I know while I was in prison, I was creative. I did a lot of art, a lot of drawing. But once I transitioned to the community for the last time, I just can't tap into that creativity anymore. I needed to be in that isolated space where there was no distractions, no pressure from the outside world, and I could draw and really express myself well that way. But as I transitioned to the community, I really learned about the power of storytelling. And I started in rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and, sharing my story in those rooms. And then eventually, as I evolved into peer work, I found the power of telling my story to other people who were going through the same struggles I went through. So with people I was working with, sharing my stories of, what it was like for me transitioning to the community and, the struggles I went through, the successes, and, trying to inspire hope and for other people who were going through the same struggles, caught in that revolving door, going in and out of prison, and, the drug use, and, just trying to, it's really a good feeling when, you meet someone and you can tell them a little bit about your story, and you can kind of almost see their shoulders drop and their guard go down, and they're like, oh, hey, I can relate to this, So, I think that's really a powerful thing to be able to, try to inspire hope for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. The transformative impact, I think, of storytelling can't be understated. And there's so many.
Storytelling is so important. Inside, a lot of people don't get to tell their stories. There's their reputation, right, tells their story. Newspaper articles tell their story. Their files tell their story, but that's written by other people. Very seldom are they able to tell their own story. And since doing this, I've realized how important it is, to get people to tell their own truths, because the feedback that I've gotten from this, and people are, seeing that there's so many myths that are created about people inside, that sometimes this will put a human face on people.
Yeah, and I think that human face is so important for stigma reduction and changing culture. As a researcher, I spend a lot of time looking at numbers and data and doing epidemiology, but certainly in my experience, it's been the stories and the faces and, people really describing their truth, as you said, in their real life, that transforms the way that we think about things and the empathy that we have for people and all the different ways that a story can be told, right? Which isn't just necessarily writing.
I think it's super empowering to be able to tell your story. And then also the more you tell your story and the more that you can live in your truth and see that you've moved past, your past struggles. It's just really empowering, and it can help others, it can help reduce, like you said, reduce the stigma. And, you can move to somewhere where it's no longer something to be ashamed of. It's a strength, and you've learned so much and you've grown so much from your experiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Karen, I have a question for you as somebody that's been working in the system for a long time, and I know a lot of your work is focused on programming. So I wonder if you can tell us a bit about the role that corrections can play in providing opportunities for creative activity.
Yeah, I've seen it with my own eyes, back at William Head, watching the transformation of the guys that got involved in the plays. Notwithstanding the one where they took the coffin and used it as a boat to escape, but God, I feel old. That's a long time ago. No, but Guthrie House, the conception of that was completely different, because it was before it was always they don't talk to us, we don't talk to them. And Guthrie encouraged staff to have conversations and let them be creative and show their creativity and take interest in what they do. And those relationships have pushed guys forward. And they actually, I mean, how many times do you see guys knocking on the gate to come back in because there's a good dinner happening on a unit, right? And they come back and they call us and they tell us how they're doing and they reach out and it keeps everybody connected. And I think corrections can have a big role in that. And we do, we're starting to. Relational correctional practice is fairly new, but it's not that new, you know? There's been staff for a long time that have kind of moved that way. And I honestly think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, so for maybe some folks in the audience who this language might be new for them, can you just say a little bit about what relational correctional practice means?
Well, it's just that. It's investing in your clients and having them trust you, building that relationship, and, you know, no judgment. Just, you're here, let's work through it, let's get you out, and let's let you be successful.
Right. So for those who have never heard of Guthrie, it's the only prison-based therapeutic community that we have. It's part of Nanaimo Correctional Center, and so that's what Karen's referring to. It's really exceptional and quite a rare program. Can you talk a bit, Karen, about any barriers that you've faced to try to develop this within a carceral context?
Yeah, there was a lot of resistance and reluctance from a lot of staff to participate in it, and you know, we had some staff originally that wanted to be part of it, and then they were actually shunned by their peers because they were social workers. They weren't correctional officers. And that was a huge challenge. I think we're almost over it now. We have a lot of staff that want to work on the unit because it actually is one of the most easy units and one of the most, it's not a secure unit, but you feel safe there.
Wow.
It must be satisfying too.
Yeah, it's absolutely
You know,
satisfying.
yeah.
I wouldn't want to go to the other side again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we just need to make all prisons Guthrie.
We do.
That's the plan.
But I'm not going to be there. I'm out. I'm kidding.
Right.
I've done a lot of
Get you
time.
a successor then. We've got to get that in the pipeline. Fantastic. That's, so positive to hear that that's happening. I want to pick up a little bit, Pam, on what you were saying about, you know, having this environment when you're in custody, but then when you leave feeling like, you know, everything has changed. And you've obviously talked about that as well, Patrick, coming out in community, and it may be being harder to tap into some of that creative energy. And so what do you think we also need to be doing in terms of programming that's available to people when they leave a carceral setting to, you know, continue these kinds of activities?
Well, I guess keeping people engaged is really important. I mean, I know for me, like it was something that I always did when I was in prison. So when I walked out the door, that was it. I left it behind. I moved on, and it was always just something I did inside. So, I mean, I think like if we can like have workshops and have opportunities for people to come in and tap into that creative power would be amazing. And, you know, to kind of continue it going, because there's so many brilliant and talented people in prison, and the art is amazing, and the creativity is through the roof, and you know, it's just really would be great if we could tap into that a little more.
Yeah, fantastic. And have you been involved at all in the Art and Justice project?
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah,
A bit.
it's just incredible works of art that are, you know, just fantastic. Is there anything else that you folks just want to share on this topic? I just came prepared with some of my own questions, but I feel like this is just a good opportunity to see if there's something for you that's come up as you watched this. Or
I just want to say I'm a huge fan of what was on at Guthrie House, and it's just amazing to see. And as someone who is housed in in Alouette Correctional Center, there was a period in, I think it was 2004 to 2007. I'm not sure. It was in the early 2000s. We had an amazing warden, and we were doing research inside prison. We were getting paid to do research. We were researching our own health issues and holding forums and inviting the community. And there was so many people I know, and I didn't get clean right away after that, but that experience would change something for me. And I know that a lot of women who, you know, got out and got involved in the same research project, but in the community. And, you know, they're still clean and sober today, and they've been out of prison for many years. So, I mean, I just know how valuable that is. And I mean, there's other correctional centers in the province that are doing similar things like OCC and Community Connections and Oliver. And, you know, it's just really important that, you know, we have people like yourself who like really care and, you know, can like move that work forward to like build those connections with people and be more personable and, you know, not just be a number and, you know, write in your file, like you say, you know, like just being able to kind of bridge that gap between corrections and staff and, you know, build on those relationships to have that support while people are in. Because, you know, we all need somebody to believe in us. And, you know, and having someone believe in you can make all the difference, whether you're successful, you know, when you transition to the community. So that's very important.
Cool. Thanks for that, Pam. Anything you
Yeah, and it's, I guess, to find a community, you know. And if you don't find the community, you inevitably go to what you know. So you go back to the familiar, you go back to your world, right? And unless, like myself, I hooked into the theater community, but still when I first got into the community, I didn't tell people about my background. I really kept it close to my vest, and it was only recently, the last few years, and it's like Pam was saying, it really, when you start telling your story and start telling your truth, it really gives you, more confidence that, yeah, I'm living in my own skin, and to find community for people once they get out. I mean, there's programs and everything that you can do inside, but once you walk out that door, if there are mentors that come inside and they can introduce people to different communities, the research community or whichever it is, as long as somebody is interested in something and they can latch on to that path, then they're going to do good, I think.
And I'm hoping Patrick will come over to Nanaimo and convince people to join his community when they get out. Yeah. Because that's amazing.
Road trip on a boat that's not made out of a
paddleboard.
Paddleboard, that's right. Once you all learn how to
paddleboard over.
Yeah, I think, well, what you were just saying about community, I know Guthrie, like the whole premise of TC is community as method, right? Like that's at the core of it.
And that community is built inside, but it expands outside, and they all stay connected, and they stay connected with the staff and the counselors, and community is so important.
Oh, yeah.
It's a place to belong.
Yeah.
And once you know you have one, you're solid, you're gold, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've even found that through, like, we have it's a Facebook group, but it's Alouette Correctional Center and Fraser Valley Institute alumni page. So, a lot of women join the page and, reach out to each other for support and support each other, lift each other up. Opportunities come up. Maybe it's a research opportunity or focus groups, and, the women, can get an honorarium to participate. And we'll post things like that there. And it really like engages people. And it just creates that kind of sense of community where we all come together and just support each other, which is amazing.
And just empower each other, right? Like I think that there's so much empowerment in community. And we talk a lot about reintegration after people exit custody. But for a lot of people, there's no reintegration. They never had necessarily integration, before they went into custody. And so, really having, I think, not just programs, but just the right people to promote and foster that and having space for people to meet and really, sometimes I think people also need a bit of a nudge towards that connection, especially if they're not necessarily used to having like a good, strong, supportive community. Like I didn't catch it the last time, but what you were saying about it being almost exhausting when somebody was genuinely treating you with like dignity and like a human being.
Yeah.
Because
you let your guard down and you go, what the fuck, see? I've been like this for how many years and now I gotta say hi and
I have to
stuff. It's not right.
I have to say, when I came from the East Coast and started doing time on the East Coast to doing time on the West Coast, because I started in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and worked my way out BC, it was the same thing. I came here and the guards were playing cards at people playing cards with the inmates at the table, and we had curtains in our cell, and I was like, oh my God, and I'm like talking to my friends back east and telling them, and they were so shocked. Yeah, so it's like a big shock to kind of come to that different environment where it's, things were a little more open and free flowing.
We're just weird out here, aren't we?
Good.
Well, what do you think? Do you think it's a good time to maybe start taking some questions maybe from the audience? I can't really see, so hoping that we've got a bit of help here. I think maybe with a microphone, perhaps. Do we have a mic? Great. So, does anyone want to ask a question or share a comment? Don't be shy. Okay, we've got a couple here.
Patrick, I'd just like to say thank you for your vulnerability and the way you presented it, honestly. It just blew me away. The heartfelt that, yes, you have talent, for sure. And I think you're in the right field now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I also would like to thank you so very, very much, Patrick. I just have this feeling that you're so intelligent, so talented. I heard your interview on CBC Radio Number 1 a few days ago. Quickly got tickets, probably the first one, for my mom and I to come tonight. And was so excited to be a part of hearing your story. I believe that you will be an inspiration to people not only within the prisons but outside as well, giving hope and showing the importance of how community is at the heart of a lot of our well-being. And I just wish you all the best for the next 20, 30 years. I really see a lot of great things coming your way. Finally, we all learn at different stages of life, or the learning curve, or the fruition coming forth with our talents. Just please carry on whatever you're doing. So many people are behind you.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to say thank you as well. That was fantastic. I learned a lot, and it was really interesting to hear like a very personal experience. You mentioned that you performed this within the institutions, and I'm kind of wondering, like, were any of them mad that you gave away the linoleum tile trick?
Actually, I think that institution is no longer. It was actually a pretty good institution, I thought, because there wasn't any problems in it. The people that were the inmate committee were very adamant that there was no violence to be had. And if anybody was using violence, they'd have to deal with them. And so there was none. And it was very easygoing, It was a prison. It was a penitentiary, of course, but still it was a bit easier than other penitentiaries I've been in. And yeah, it's closed down now because I think Stephen Harper closed it because it was so well run, but run by the inmates, And I don't think that he enjoyed that, so he moved people around. And the people that were there were quite high level, like major criminals, that's what they were, right? They were, in different organizations. And, they ran the place, basically. Yeah. And I don't think he liked that. Yeah.
Patrick and Karen, correct? I know prisons are based on following rules and not breaking them. What's one rule that you follow now that's the most important for you, both?
To try and be present as much as I can be.
And yourself?
To always be fair, I think. Yeah, fair.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing, right? Just being able to engage, always be ready to engage. And if you're receiving something, be there to give it back, right? So you can have an exchange instead of always looking for the next thing or just stay in that relationship.
It's like truthful identity to yourself kind of thing. And what was that like breaking point to really let yourself go? Kind of really be fluid with yourself.
Could you say that again? Sorry?
What was the breaking point? Like I know you took up theater to like what inspired you to do that? Was it just passing time or?
No, it was the university courses, and because I enrolled in one, I didn't actually think it was going to be an actual production. I just thought we'd be reading books about plays and all that, right? And then there was a actual production, and I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. But there was a couple of people in the course that had really good reputations in the population, and they were doing it. They were joining in to be clowning and all that. And I thought, okay, if they can act a fool and get away with it, I guess I can, right? Because it's very hard to let your guard down, especially if you're got a red nose and right? And I'm a little guy, right? So I gotta play the role, right? As much as I can. So yes, that's sort of what led me into it, right? And from there, realizing that this was a community, this thing called theater. Everybody was working towards one goal, to try and do their best job possible. It didn't matter what your position was, whether you're an actor, the lighting, all the technicians, the director, everybody was working towards one goal. And that really impressed me and made me think, I want to know more about this, And when I got out and was able to actually be a part of a community, then yeah, I just wanted to learn more and more and more as much as I could. And I was almost 40 at the time. When I went back to Simon Fraser, it was, I was living in a halfway house and I was pushing 40. And I went to theater class and people were 20, 19. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be tough, right? But it was wonderful, right? I was like the crazy uncle. They all came and asked me advice, and it was wonderful. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi. You mentioned in your piece, your performance, your first taste of adrenaline. I'm just wondering if this many years later, there's any urges to revisit that rush.
No. I think every once in a while, of course, you look back and you, for a split second, say, did I make the right decision? What happened to all my friends? What happened to that life? And realistically, most of them are dead. And so it's for a split second that I think about that. And that adrenaline I get doing this now.
Right.
And I don't need the adrenaline for that. Right.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I was interested in the conditions that brought Guthrie into existence, and how could that be a model for others to bring more?
I'm not sure. What do you mean by conditions?
How did it come in? How did it come into being? How did it come into existence? What factors allowed that to?
Well, it was a struggle. It was because it was a sort of an idea one of the counselors had, and she started researching it, and everybody said, no, it can't be done, it can't be done. And she pushed and pushed and pushed. And then I jumped on board with her, and we pushed and pushed and pushed, and we made it happen. And we had a lot of support from our warden at the time. He wanted to see something different. And it's true. Like you say, you didn't want to let your guard down. Literally, staff have to let their guard down to work there because they have to be, like it's weird. You got guys calling you by your first name. You call them by the first name. Nobody's got inmate in front of them or numbers in front of them. You're just all there. And it was a lot of work. It took a lot of convincing from the branch, and then the research proved right off the get-go, I think it was a 5-year project, that the recidivism rate from the guys that were in there was considerably lower than the regular population. So that garnered us more support from headquarters to keep it going.
In terms of how it might be expanded, Karen and I and a few others are actually working on a major evaluation of Guthrie House that we're hoping can be leveraged to scale up to other parts of the province. The reality when you do stuff like this is you really have to be able to show that it's effective if you want to be able to move policy. And so we've been very fortunate to get some funding to do that. So hopefully, fingers crossed. But thanks for that question. But I think it just speaks to, again, what you were saying about having the warden be so receptive. And in your case, having a warden that was just so good and so strong, like so much transformative change just comes down to like the right people, just being in the right position to say, just not going to stop fighting until we just do what we need to do. So that always makes me feel hopeful, knowing that like at the end of the day, systems are just people and we just have to get the right people into those places. So I don't know if you want to expand at all on any of that.
No, but definitely having a, semi-progressive warden and compassionate makes all the difference. Like I've seen it in different institutions, and it really influences the staff and how the staff treat people. It comes from the top, right? So when there's, a really good warden in place, it really, just trickles down through the whole institution.
That's exactly what happens. And we're still fortunate to we keep getting wardens that still care, that really give a shit. They want it to work. So, and ideally people like you that stay in it for 30, 40, I don't know how many more years you plan to stay, but that's the goal. I'm not sure if we've seen any other hands. Hi.
Thank you so much for being here to answer our questions. I'm curious to hear more about the role that education had played while you were in prison, and then also any experience you have with organizing educational programs in prisons in BC. I've been able to take some of these inside out courses where outside students go in and take courses with inside students, and they were really impactful for me. And I'm wondering if you've had opportunities to take other classes and what your reflections are on them.
Yeah, at the time when I was in, which was a long time ago, university, there was university programs. And so at first, University of Victoria came in, and it was like we had a, like a trailer, and we went every day. And the teachers were there for the semester, and they would teach us. We would get a choice of, they would find out how many professors were willing to come into a penitentiary, and then they would put the courses up on the board, and we could choose, and we choose like 4 of them out of however many. And it went from University of Victoria at first, and then it went to Simon Fraser, and it was there for quite a long time. And then a riot happened at Matsqui, and everything sort of shut down after that. And there's very few programs at a university level. There is Walls to Bridges. And the Inside Out, I guess, is on the island?
In the United States.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think out here it's, they took the Inside Out sort of model and made it, call it Walls to Bridges. Yeah.
I think we have Inside Out though, don't we?
We do.
We do.
Yeah. Actually, there's currently one running at the Nanaimo Correctional Center right now.
On the island, right? Yeah. And it's criminology, I think.
Criminology students.
I have a quick question about the safe space that you found in theater, but when you were in prison, that was seems like your safe space that you went back to, and your story needs to come out. I mean, and you as well, you found a place to tell your story when you felt safe enough to tell it, and you found it in prison. I'm hearing that, and that's what's inspiring, is that a place that was oppressive and controlling became that space that was safe enough, and the audience was there to hear your story. Out in the real world, how safe do you feel? Like to open your.
Well, I guess.
Isn't it scarier to tell your story to strangers?
Not really. I mean, most people are quite open, quite genuine. Very rarely did I ever get anybody that said, yeah, I never got anything like that. I always do a talk back after the show. Yeah, it's very rare. I know trying to get into the carceral institutions now with my show and trying to get a Q&A happening with people that view it is quite difficult. And like they're saying, it depends on who's at the top, right? That'll let you in. Out here, it's harder than it was for me to get it into Dorchester Prison in New Brunswick. And it's just who is allowing that. If somebody at the top is saying, yeah, this is a good idea, right? And someone at the top here is saying, yeah, not so much, right? So it all depends, right? Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question at all.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
In prison isn't always the safest place to tell your story. I mean, and also a lot of people have very similar stories in prison. There's a lot of the same trauma, a lot of the same things that brought people to prison that are very similar. And I know for me, it took coming to the community and then being in safe spaces in the community, whether it be, meeting in small groups with people with, that were like-minded, that were, interested in about prison health or prison health research or, but that were open-minded and wanted to hear my story. And then gradually over time, I got really confident with who I am now. And I really don't care who knows. I mean, you will meet the odd person who will still judge, right? Because that was you, but it was your past, right? So you just gotta kind of find a place in yourself where you just kind of move past that, any judgment you might face, because you know who you are now. And you know how much you've changed, how much your life has changed. And, you just telling your story can help so many other people. And, just kind of be that voice for other people who haven't found their own voice yet to share their story and find that kind of peace in themselves.
Thanks for that, Pam. Maybe we'll just do a quick time check, Am, because I'm a terrible moderator and didn't wear a watch. So 2 more? Okay, great. We'll take 2 more questions.
I have a question for Karen. Did you notice any patterns emerge regarding recidivism while you worked at Guthrie?
Just that it was the guys that came out of Guthrie were more likely to succeed and not come back.
Okay.
And if they did come back, they came back for much lesser offenses than they originally went in for. And most of the time, because Guthrie has a treatment component to it, it was probably a relapse and a breach and not really actually another crime.
Okay. And then also had a question for Pam as well. Specifically, what did you struggle with most during reintegration? And what elements of life did you struggle with or did you find most challenging?
Honestly, changing my addictive attitudes and my addictive behaviors and living a life of crime for over 25 years. That's how I survived from when I was a teenager right on till I was almost 40. And it was very hard to let go of that. I took the drugs out of the picture, but, you know, I had very little money, struggling, you know, financially in recovery in the early stages. And, you know, I would fall back to things like shoplifting, you know, whether it was for groceries or, you know, it was just, that's what I knew. And I would fall into those behaviors of, you know, like the crimes, you know, it wasn't like major crimes, but I was still, you know, that behavior was still going on, that criminal behavior. So that was the hardest part and the hardest thing for me to let go of. But it only took like someone believing me, giving me an opportunity, giving me a job, and I never looked back. I never shoplifted a single candy since the day I found employment and had purpose and something meaningful in my life that I was passionate about. And that's so like the work I'm doing now, working with people leaving corrections. And it's been life-changing for me. And that was all I needed, was that opportunity to get on the right path and someone to believe in me and give me that opportunity. And I just ran with it. And I let go of all that stuff. And I mean, I couldn't steal a candy if I wanted to nowadays, because, you know, like it's just not who I am anymore. But, you know, I still get it. I still remember what it was like. But yeah, that was the biggest struggle for me.
So powerful, Pam. I think that deserves a round of applause. So cool. So that was 2 questions, but we'll go with one more person since we said good questions.
I just have a comment, or maybe critique, I suppose. Here we have heard about some very successful personal stories, individually as well as with the Guthrie institution. And if I'm not mistaken, aren't there examples of institutions for incarceration that have already proven themselves to be more humanistic with interaction with the outside world and the inside, and with university programs and rehab, et cetera, in the Scandinavian countries? And why we have to wait for more studies and committees and wait for one example here in BC to maybe make things a little bit more regulated across all of Canada, for every province, every region, for a certain kind of prison.
Does anyone get the premier on the phone? David Eby? Call him up?
So that's illuminating to me tonight, and frustrating at the same time, because I worry, how long is it going to take before this is established in our own vast country? Patrick?
Yeah.
Maybe you can be a leader to establish
it's
better
a political
practices.
will. Yeah, it's definitely political will.
I find
So
it really
many
hard.
people on the other side that are saying, no, it's for punishment, and this is what prisons are for, right? And you keep to those 4 or 5 pillars, and that's what it is. And no, it's not going to change until people like Karen, keep on pushing.
It's all on you, Karen.
It's all on me.
It's all on your shoulders.
Do you have anything you want to add to that as somebody who works in the system?
Yeah, I did actually, but I've lost it. I'm old. What I was going to say is I can't believe 12 years I've been with this Guthrie program, and it's still unique. It shouldn't be. You know, it should be Canada-wide.
But they said it's political will.
That's right.
So it is on us to change the politicians and our own mentality.
That's a great comment.
Individual one of us to make these changes happen.
Hear, hear. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for your comments, and thank you to our amazing panel, and congratulations, Patrick, on your play. And it was just, such an honor to be here. So thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.